Hello and welcome to the Go There Do That podcast. My name is Ethan and I'm here with my wife Heather, and today we're going to talk about our evolution of camping. And I'm going to dedicate this episode's intro to Nick,
Why?
because in the previous episode he pointed out, this is my brother's friend, pointed out that our intro wasn't edited, but I like to keep it a little candid at first, like we're warming up,
Mm-hmm.
but wasn't good enough. So I'm not keeping any of that banter in this episode in the beginning. No banter. No back and forth. No getting off topic whatsoever.
Okay.
So yes, our evolution of camping. I guess first we can start off with my camping history and how I've sort of grown. So when I was like, as long as I can remember, my parents always had an RV or one of those what is
Like
it?
a trailer.
Trailer,
Camper, yeah.
trailer tow behind thing, and those are it was an old school pop up. We had to crank, like it was like a flat little pancake, and then there's this giant metal lever thing that you put into it, and you have to crank it.
Oh, wow.
And it was very scary because it's like this giant metal wire that goes across that's like doing the pulling for you, and it wraps. But it was very old, so at some point you started to see the metal like start to, you know how a string comes apart? It was like
Yeah.
that, but with metal.
Oh, okay.
We did upgrade
Yeah.
to a nicer one, but
That's where you started.
that's where I started camping, and it would Pedernales Falls in the Texas summer and that didn't, the AC inside of this camper pop up would leak. Like, you know how AC has that condensation. So it would run down the side above one of the beds, but it would pool up above a bed and then leak into the camper onto people who were sleeping sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was a workaround, but I do remember that happening. But it would be very hot in that thing because it was not like very insulated at all. It was just a fabric. And yeah.
And it's faced against the Texas summer heat.
So it kept us outside most of the time. Pedernales Falls is like the place to go, though, because you could go swimming in the river, Pedernales River. But yeah, my mom always says I would call it Pedernales,
I've definitely heard you call it that, yeah.
and it would be Pedernales. You say it right. Yeah, and that state park is probably the one I know best out of
Yeah.
all of them. It's also very beautiful, but I mean, we just go out into the wilderness, and we were there before the signs came up of do not hike into this area. There's a place called Twin Falls, but it leads out into the river. But we'd just be wading in the river, and then we'd see a little trail like where water's coming in, and so we'd walk up. And one of the first times I went to the Twin Falls was actually in a restricted area. Now they have signs everywhere, but we were there before, so we were just adventuring along the river, and we saw Twin Falls. And so that viewpoint that is now not allowed, I've seen the Twin Falls from down there before.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool because you can't really see them from the overlook. If you've ever
Right.
been to Pedernales, like there's pretty thick trees, and the Twin Falls are like tiny.
Yeah.
But
I remember when,
Yeah.
we hiked there, I was kind of like, okay, what's the big deal? Because, yeah, it is an obstructed view.
yeah, so you
So you basically have always been camping
basically,
as long as you can remember.
yeah, it would just be like the most chaotic times ever because my family is just big and it's just nobody liked to sit around ever. We'd always like getting up and like because it was so hot, we'd just come back to eat
Yeah.
or nap somewhere in the shade, and then just get up and start moving again. And we'd bring our dogs with us, and that was really fun. But we always had to get on this spot. I forget the number, but it was right across from the bathrooms because that pop-up did not have a bathroom.
Yeah. Well, and there's too many of y'all, even for like the trailer camper to suffice.
It
Really.
would last like 30 minutes if we had a bathroom in it.
Did you ever like tent camp as a kid?
So I did bring some high school friends
Uh-huh.
with me at times, and they would just give us the tent because
Mm-hmm.
at that point you're at capacity with any camper,
Right.
and so yeah, we would sleep in tents. And so I would go with my friend Jeffrey as well, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was pretty fun. Oh, and uh, every I feel like I'm still just Pedernales like that. Pedernales, where we would go all the time, and uh, it feels like every season since I've been there so many times, like as every season, every couple years, there's like a new like dominant animal there.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's hogs, sometimes it's like foxes, and you see a lot of those, and sometimes it's just armadillos everywhere. But one year I asked the park ranger, and he's like, "Yeah, sometimes like it's just kind of a rotation. Like there's a population rise
Hmm.
in one animal, and they just kind of it's a good year for them, I guess."
Yeah.
But yeah, the ones with the pigs were scary because you'd they're
Mm-hmm.
very big and destructive, and they would just
Yeah.
like not really care about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, you'd see these giant burrow like holes because they dig up roots, and hogs aren't good for the environment apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. I mean, there's a place in Junction that's not exactly a state park, but it was a lot.
Lano State Park. It is a state park.
Well, there was another place that
Oh.
wasn't a state park that we'd camp along the river as well, and it
Uh-huh.
wasn't like private, but it was somebody that owned land along the river. They
Mm-hmm.
had like campsites and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was explained to me, yeah. But along the Llano River, Garner State Park is another one that I remember um, fondly. The Frio River,
Mm-hmm.
that was very fun. But uh, yeah, that's this. Just getting used to the outdoors, I think, is very important for children growing up. And it was me from as long as I can remember too, like high school and
Yeah.
college ish. And then you kind of overlapped into that as well a little bit in the family camping
Mm-hmm. I went
trips.
camping with y'all once,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like we stayed in like a little tent, because the camper was kind of at capacity at that point
Mm-hmm.
too. But yeah.
But that tent is important, but we'll come back to that later because we're going to talk about Heather's very extensive camping history.
Yeah, so before we started camping, I think I went to like one girls' camping thing for like, I don't know, whatever youth kid group I was a part of in like a church or something. Like I remember there was like a camp out, and I vividly remember it getting rained out, and I was really upset because my pillow got wet.
Y'all slept in
Um,
tents?
yeah.
Mm.
But it was just like one night, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, with like a whole big group of girls. And then after that, no camping at all until I went camping with you and your family in like, must have been like 2015, maybe 20, it might have been 2014.
did you say how old you were the first camping trip?
Oh, I was probably like, still elementary, I think. Like,
Did you say how old you were uh, the first camping trip you went on?
probably like fifth grade or so. It was like when we like first moved church or whatever. So yeah, about fifth grade. And then yeah, no camping experiences until I went camping with you and your family at Pedernales
Yeah.
Falls. Yeah, and that was hot. It was March, so it was like forgiving enough. But yeah, that was fun. But I also remember not having a great time riding bikes.
Oh, you can't ride bikes, huh?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I broke my tailbone when I was in fourth grade.
Hmm.
So, riding bikes hurts a whole bunch. Unless, like, I have a super special seat So I kind of just like don't. But as you said earlier, your family likes to like go, 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 move, move, move. So then I was like slowing up everyone. And
You
I
were.
don't think I was the favorite of the trip. So yeah. And then no more camping again until my friend Jennifer invited me to go camping while we were COVID teaching. And
Who's Jennifer? Your
Jennifer, okay, yeah, that makes sense to explain. Jennifer is my friend. I taught with her when I was teaching in Fort Worth. So that's how we met and became friends. But she's really into camping, and she has a camper van, a Travato.
and y'all remained friends after.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Still friends. But yeah, so she invited me to go camping with her in the Travato camper van, and it was amazing. And so then I was like, oh, I think I like camping because it was just nice, like being, like we were just like away from everything. It was quiet. You're just like outside most of the time, but the van also had like, nice amenities like AC in May in Texas. Well, actually, we were in Oklahoma, but still hot. And yeah, so it kind of changed my perspective on camping at that point because I was like, oh, this is like enjoyable. Like I forgot that I like being outdoors. Like I always liked being outdoors as a kid, but maybe you get to like a point where you're just like, I don't know. I think I just like didn't like anything because I was just a punk teenager,
And your pillow got wet. I don't know how anybody get over that.
Yeah, that was hard to overcome.
So you've had wet pillow and swirling whirlwind of chaos and movement as you're trying to like get used to it, and you didn't exactly like, it's like, oh, you can't ride a bike, you can't da da da, and so that's just everybody camps differently, and you personally like to slow things down
Yes, I'm a very chill camper.
and have AC.
Yes, I can lay in a hammock and like read the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
but I also like to go on like long hikes, difficult hikes, but yeah, I definitely like to enjoy things at my own pace.
Mm-hmm. And not mountain biking.
Yeah.
So we haven't done that together.
Yeah.
And probably never will. But so this we this kind of made you catch the bug again in a way, the van trip with Jennifer.
Yeah, well, so then didn't go camping again for a while, but then not soon after that, that's kind of when you brought up the whole idea of like go there, do that. And camping, like you were like, let's just like we're not really allowed to do much else with like COVID, so let's just like go to state parks and go camping. And because I had that experience with Jennifer like a couple of months before that, it made me way more open to the idea of trying it. Like, had I not had that experience, I don't know if I would have said yes.
But that was early 2020, so before March of 2020, right? When you and Jennifer went camping.
It was in May.
It was in May of 2020. Oh, they bought the van in February.
Yeah.
So they bought it right before COVID, which is perfect timing. That's right. That's right.
Yes, yeah.
And then you went in May, and it was nice because it was cool inside the van. So, what about do you want to tell the story about the tent with no rain fly we mentioned?
Sure. So the same tent that we stayed in when we were camping with your parents was kind of handed down to us. I think we asked for it honestly because we were like, let's try this thing out. We want to go camping, but we also don't want to invest a whole ton of money into it because what if we hate it and it flops?
Well, because you haven't tried
Right.
camping alone with me, and
Yeah.
that might be awful.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I've been camping like with friends and solo like few times, but it is like a whole different experience when you're not like you don't have that family, like,
Mm-hmm.
there's one person who cooks and one person who
Right.
gets things ready. You kind of have to do all that yourself when it's just two people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a friend of mine and his girlfriend once asked if they could go camping with us,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, y'all two need to go camping together first before
Yes.
you come with us, because y'all have to work out those kinks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, I'll lead us into our first camping trip together, which was
At Inks
Inks
Lake.
Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our first, like, oh crap, and
Yeah.
it's not, it's Inks Lake. It's not like we're isolated or anything,
No, it's literally like 45 minutes from where we live.
but we didn't have like the exotic meals that you
Mm-hmm.
now can cook. It was,
Yeah.
what was it? It was just like hot dog weenies or
Yeah,
something.
I just brought hot dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
we had our tent at the time. I think that when we camped with your family, it had a rain fly, but by the time it was handed down to us, there was no rain fly. So we just kind of had to like hope for good weather, which
Yes.
ironically enough, we experienced the entire time we camped with that tent.
No wet pillows.
No wet pillows.
So that was what was the craziest part, because I'm kind of like hoping that you like the outdoors, because I grew up in it, and it's nutty that we didn't have any inclement weather while we're literally just staring straight up into the sky with just
Yes.
this mesh that keeps bugs out,
Mm-hmm.
basically, with two dogs.
Yep.
If it would have rained with two dogs in a tent, that would have been crazy.
Yep.
I've had that happen one time, like a super crazy storm in a tent, and it's miserable. Like, you just throw everything into somebody's vehicle,
Right.
and then you're like, you can have it, I don't care. Like, everything's muddy and gross.
Yeah.
But that was, how long was that? That was like a couple months of no rain or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, every
I
weekend.
think I think we got the other tent in December. So we camped from August to December. Like pretty much every weekend, like when we first started, I really like went full force with it and I planned camping trips every single weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And the like state parks were really hard to get reservations with, so I would just like get one night and that was like all I
Mm.
could get, but we would still drive 3 hours for one night of
So,
camping.
yeah, from where we are, Garner State Park is 3.5 hours away. So there was one time when we booked just a Friday night,
Saturday
a
night.
Saturday night to Garner. So that's 3.5 hours that we drive, and then we check out is at
12 the next
12.
day, yeah.
So yeah, but we did a lot. I don't know how, but we walked up Old Baldy with both the dogs, Danny and O'Malley. And
Yeah, we made it work.
yeah, but it's that kind of stuff would
Yeah.
happen a lot.
But I mean, there was probably like 8 at least camping trips with the tent with no rain fly. And it was just like, I mean, obviously the weather wasn't perfect because we started in August. So like it was hot. But we had these like USB fans that
Oh
helped
yeah.
kind of create like a breeze. And then we had a tent with no rain fly. So you'd get like the breeze of just
Oh, the
the like the air.
Mother Nature.
Yeah, like there was no protection.
But
So
that was cool. A good thing on my part was, when we started camping, I wasn't like easing our way into like bringing camera stuff either.
very
Like,
true.
I just brought all of my camera stuff with me, and
Right away.
it was like, in either we would keep it in the car or locked or in the tent with us.
Yeah,
But it wasn't like there was never a time without
camera
filming
stuff.
stuff.
Right.
But it was pretty mindless and crazy, the beginning of Go There Do That, in my opinion. It was just really nice footage of things.
Yeah.
But it was also just like, I don't know what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
I would email like Texas Parks and Wildlife. I was like super in with them. Like, I would submit. So to fly a drone at a state park is incredibly difficult. You have to give them at least 3 months of notice.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have like a drone, can I please fly a drone like sheet on their website.
Yeah.
It was called an event. thing, event request. And so this is like if you're filming a movie there, or if you're like getting a big gathering of like a wedding or whatever, event request. But I would just wanted to fly a drone for like 10 minutes.
Right.
And like, is that okay? But there was only that one option, like one way to like request it. And so I don't, I was emailing a lot of different people because I was just like, how do I fly? Like, I was just really wanting to fly a drone legally
Yeah.
at a state park because they're beautiful. And I needed to do it because you make me follow all the rules. And,
Yep.
you know, and they have to make sure they're not disturbing wildlife or people or,
Yeah.
where are you flying? Some people want to know your exact flight path and want a photo of your drone license. And some people are like, oh, nobody's
Sure.
ever filled one of these out before. That's cool.
Yeah.
What is this again?
Like every park was different
Yes.
in how they handled it. Yeah.
Yeah, and some parks directors, I had like their cell phone number, and some met me, and so it was
Hans.
yes, Hans, if you're out there, Corpus Christi,
Galveston.
Galveston
Island.
Island, sorry, Galveston Island State Park, yeah, so that well, the problem was you could only fill it out every 3 months or 3 months. You needed
Oh,
to
it's
give
only
them.
good for 3 months.
Well, you needed to give them 3 months notice.
Oh.
But you can only you can only book a state park
6 months.
At the time though, it was cut in half because it was like COVID and stuff. I remember
Oh,
that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I remember that being a
Yeah.
problem. So I was like, I need 6 months, but also everything's booked. Like everybody was booking everything. So I'll try to explain this correctly. Like we booked as soon as the 3-month window hit, but also I needed to give them 3 months notice.
Yeah.
And it kind of was like I literally had to do the event request as soon as we booked the thing.
Right.
And I let them know that, and they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have a better system. And so, but they're like, you're going to have to do this every single time you do it. So I went through and I booked or filled out a event request for every single state park. And they were like, hey, you don't have to like do that. But I was like, this is the only way that you said I would be able to do it. So I was getting phone calls like for weeks just from superintendents being like, hello, like, what is this for? Yeah. So I was like trying to, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, because we did get to like get really awesome like drone footage pretty often. And Pedernales Falls was a big one because the only way I was able to fly at Pedernales over the falls, which is very beautiful, the only way I was able to fly there was because when I filled out the event request, they were closed on a day because of COVID stuff. And so I got to go in by myself alone one morning, and this was really cool because it was like sunset or sunrise by myself. And we had just camped there with my parents before that. And so they have like a gate with a code, but they didn't give that to me. And I was getting there so early. This was before.
Right. There's no one there.
This was the only day available that they let me do it was the day before, or it was a weekday. So I had work that same day. So I had to wake up at like 4 a.m. and drive an hour and a half there. And yeah, the gate code worked because
we were just there.
We were just there. But they didn't there was nobody there working at 5:30 a.m. But yeah, I got there and I had clearance with the superintendent and everything. I flew. It was really beautiful. I have the footage still. And then a park ranger walks down. Like I see somebody park up on the hill, but this guy walks down and I'm like packing everything up because I'm like, okay, I need to go. Like it's time. But he stands there and he's like, sir, you are trespassing on state park property, because I didn't have a tag because I got there so early.
Yeah.
I couldn't check in. But I was like, actually, I have clearance. I have an email from the superintendent, and if he's here now, I would like for you to like check in with him. And I was like, I really hope he remembers my name and that I'm doing this today.
Yeah.
But he's like, stay right here. But he was like ready to arrest me or something, because
Yeah.
I don't know what you do if you trespass on state park property. Like,
Well, yeah.
what the
Well, and it's like no
punishment
one's
is.
supposed to be there.
And I'm flying a drone.
Yeah.
Oh yes, and yeah, it's closed.
Right.
Yeah. So he radios the superintendent. He's like, "Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's just let him be there." And so he's like, "Have a good day, sir." And so then he turns around. I was like, "Wait, can you please just give me a ride back to my car, because it's a long walk from here to there, and like help me carry my stuff up?" And he was like, "Sure." and it was really funny because he gave me a ride back. But
Yeah.
that's why you need clearance, because if you just diddly dally
Right.
wherever you want, there is somebody who looks at the trespassers.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, the tags on vehicles is a big thing too, like if you don't register.
Right.
But I did that afterwards. But yeah, but I have this really cool footage of
Mm-hmm.
Pedernales.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went crazy for a while, like
Yeah.
submitting, and then I got tired of that because it was exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
I have all these stacks of papers like
Mm-hmm.
with their signatures on them. Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, side story.
A side
What's
quest.
next? We upgraded, right,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to a
Um,
new tent eventually, right?
yes. So yeah, eventually we were like, we probably shouldn't. Well, and we also at that point decided like we like camping, so let's go ahead and invest in a tent for us that maybe has a rain fly. Because I mean, essentially we were like playing with fate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it will catch up to us eventually. So yeah, we bit the bullet and got like a tent from REI, all of our own, and it was big enough to actually stand up in because the hand me down tent was like pretty small, like a small 2-person tent. And you just like crawl in, and we were camping with us and our 2 big Labradors. So it was kind of a tight squeeze. So we upgraded to a 6-person. What is it called? It was called.
A Kingdom 6
Mm-hmm.
tent. It's not available anymore. We
I
checked
know.
before this, but it's very big. I could
Well,
stand up in it.
at least it's not available on REI,
Oh,
but also it's an REI tent, so it's probably just not available.
discontinued.
Yeah. But yeah, so we upgraded to that. The first time we used that was actually camping with my friend Jennifer and her husband Joe at Dinosaur Valley.
Yeah, they had
And
their big fancy van, and we had our big fancy tent.
yeah.
Um,
But they got to witness us putting that tent together
oh,
for
the
the first
first
time in
time.
the dark.
In the dark. Yeah, because we get there late after work or whatever, and
Yeah.
yeah, they were like standing there, like this will be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, they have like a awesome camper van and they just like pull up and plug in.
yeah, and that was my first time to see Joe again since Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
But they were another side note. They were going on a trip to Yellowstone, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they were asking for camera recommendations, and I had just given them an
God.
old camera that I had that was also a handing me down to me. So I handed that camera to him, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was my first time seeing him again. But because you gave the camera to Jennifer, and then she gave it to him.
Right.
But I was like, "How's that camera going, man?" He's like, "You ruined me." But
Yeah,
it was
because
very
he's
funny.
like has all these lenses and
Mm-hmm.
like uses it for like these really cool abstract like landscape photography, but
Mm-hmm.
also like they love birding. So yeah, you did ruin
Mm-hmm.
him, but in the best way.
I created a birder.
Yeah. But they
Um,
ruined us too because
the
we also wound up
yes.
upgrading from the big tent, which did it like it was awesome. Like it served its purpose. Um, Unlike the little tent with the rainfly, we did have a few more like bad weather experiences in it, but like it held up other than like poles
Well,
bending and
there
stuff. But
was the first time at Big Bend National Park, and it
mm-hmm.
was very windy. There were
Yeah.
literally tents in trees after that, but the poles had bent.
Yeah, and then it
Yeah.
happened again. Like we went and got a replace. Like REI has like great policy where you
Mm-hmm.
can like return it. They give you your full refund and or you can like switch for a new one. And so our poles were just like bent to hell, and so we switched it with a brand new tent. And then I think it was like not the very first camping trip we went on after that, but maybe like 1 or 2 after we like got the new tent, and then it was super windy at Enchanted Rock, and then again bent the poles. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So the tent wasn't big and nice and roomy, but also it is a sail
Right.
essentially whenever
Yeah.
it's very windy. So
Yeah.
you can't have everything unless
Yes.
you purchase
Yeah.
a
So our
van.
final form of camping, yeah, and I don't see us like doing like I know that there are other ways to camp. Like we could go back to tent camping. I am interested in like backpacking, but that's kind of different. That doesn't mean we can get rid of the van. We need to get rid of the van. But also but like a pool behind trailer or whatever. I don't see
A,
like we're in our
a
final form
pop
of
up
camping.
with a
Yeah.
little lever
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. So that we've experienced many different types of camping before the camper van,
Yeah.
which is seen as probably one of the ultimate types of
Mhm.
camping,
Yeah.
and with good reason too, because it's very nice. It has it all
Yeah.
in 21 feet, but you can't do that with a huge family, and you can't do that with somebody who you don't like.
Yeah.
So we had to know we liked each other,
Right.
and we also, oh, and the dogs
Yeah.
would fit in there too comfortably.
Yes. Yeah, the biggest thing like pushing the decision behind the van was like the eat like at that point we know we like camping, like we're going to keep doing this, so like an investment in camping is fine. And so we were really interested in like the ease because like I said earlier, like we pulled up and we have to like put our tent together in the dark, and then our friends pull up and they're just park and plug it in.
Yes, they set up within like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and then they even got their chairs out to sit down and watch us
Yeah.
set up our tent,
Right.
and laugh.
So the van is just really ideal for that because it's so easy to get set up. It's so easy to take down. So you just like really like use all of your time for camping instead of us, making sure that we're packing up an hour before it's time for us to go so that, we make it out by checkout time because we have to like undo everything. Also, yeah, like because of the bad weather things, there were a couple of nights we wound up sleeping in the car because we couldn't sleep in the tent because it was like snowing really bad or it was so windy you couldn't sleep and our tent was blowing away.
Or there was a blizzard and tornadoes at Paladero Canyon.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
with the snow, but so yeah, the ease of it was the biggest thing, and like for the dogs, I mean, tent camping was like okay, but we were camping every other weekend, and a lot of times we were like asking our neighbors to watch them, and they're really great, and they love on our dogs, but I want to take our dogs camping. But when we were tent camping, sometimes we would be like, it would be easier to just like get them to watch them
And
and not take them.
so we realized that we were like camping without the dogs, and that's also another factor. We were like, well, we can't gotta take them,
Yeah.
and so
Right. And I mean, some of that was because it was too hot to camp with the dogs. Like, we were at Garner and like we were literally just like driving around
it
in
was
the
so hot.
car with the dogs because they were miserable and they were so hot. And so, certain times of the year it didn't feel good to camp with the dogs. It wasn't because they're like annoying or anything. It was just thinking of them.
Yeah. But our first official like road trip with the van was for a wedding,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was funny.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kirsten.
Yeah.
But yeah, she got married, and it was a little bit further away.
Yeah, like 2 hours away. And so I just like found there's not like a state park there, but I just found like a RV, you know.
Yeah, but you sometimes weddings you're deciding that you're not going to go because it's like, I have to go to this wedding and
Get a
find
hotel.
a place to stay,
Yeah.
or I have to drive back 2 hours, which means I'm not drinking or whatever. And so, yeah, and it actually rained at the wedding, so there was supposed to have seating on the outside, but they had to move some things in.
Yeah.
And so we were no trouble at all because we went out to the van and just ate our little
Yeah.
meal in the van with the little table and everything, which was fun. But we were also just excited about using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. But yeah, we stayed at that cool RV park. Which also, fun fact, this guy at the RV park just stayed there permanently, and he was like, the cost of me living at this RV park with my camper and everything is cheaper than my property taxes were for my house
Yeah,
every year.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but maybe someday.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice RV park though.
Yeah.
Like you think of RV parks, but
Yeah.
it's not trailer park boys.
Right.
Um, yeah. So what's your you have written down? You took the notes for this one.
Yeah.
You have funny, bad slash bad camping
Oh
memory.
yeah. Okay, so I think my so none of our camping experiences have been like so bad that I wanted to never camp again. So they're not bad in that sense, but sometimes you do have bad experiences camping and then later you can look back on them and laugh like they're funny. But I would say that my least favorite camping experience was in Big Bend with the upgraded, like, big 6-person tent. Yeah, we spent almost a week in Big Bend, and our last night there, and we were in the Rio Grande Village, and Big Bend is notorious for being windy. Like, Jennifer had warned me about it. But we'd been there 2 nights. We had stayed in the Chisos, and it really wasn't too bad. But that last night, it was so windy that the tent was just like coming down and like literally touching my forehead, like because the wind was just like so forceful. And then, like we said earlier, like the poles were bent so bad that you couldn't use it after that. But also, it's really hard to sleep in a tent when like the wind is blowing like that. Like there was no way I was gonna sleep that night. And then fun fact, I had sprained my ankle that night also. So that was kind of like painful, but we wound up just like it really felt like the tent was just gonna blow away. And the next morning we woke up and there were literally people's tents in trees because it was so windy. But we wound up packing up the tent and sleeping in the car. But that was probably my least favorite experience just because it was like just so crazy. I was tired and grumpy. My ankle was sprained and I had to sleep and like we have so much stuff you can't like lay down the stuff like the seats in the back and just like lay down and make that a bed. So like we're literally just sleeping in the driver's side
Upright.
and the passenger side like upright, and I'm just like trying to find a comfortable position to put my ankle in. So yeah,
You couldn't.
it was rough.
Yeah, I just remember the tent in the inside. It just felt like people were outside just hitting it, like
Yes.
pushing it in, and sometimes it would lean so far it would like hit you in the head.
Yes.
As you were laying down in the tent. So it would just like blow so far, and that's how the poles broke. But yeah, there is a I forget the term because I'm not a tent camper anymore, but those strings,
Oh yeah.
yeah, some guy lines.
Guy lines, yeah.
So
Yeah.
so those you're supposed to like have them secure to the poles and then nail them into the ground. So it's like extra strength. But
Yeah.
we did do that
We
at
did that in Enchanted Rock.
Rock, and it still blew. So
Yeah.
Enchanted Rock was crazy too. But I don't know. I was like, I do it right. I thought,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. After the first time, I was like, oh, I'm definitely doing this now. Then I did it, and we still got
Yeah.
bent. So,
But yeah, for me, I'd take like rainy camping over windy camping any day.
yeah. And so we have,
What's your least favorite
I just,
camping moment?
least favorite?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it all. All experiences, you take the good
There's
with
not
the
been
bad.
one moment where you were like, "Oh, in the moment." And like with that, I look back on that and I'm like, it was fine, right? But in that moment, it wasn't so great.
So, I do love O'Malley, but there are times whenever I'm having to hold his leash because you're tired of dragging him or being drugged by him. It was
Yeah.
back before he was he's a little
He's
more
more well trained now, yeah.
trained now. But this was before that, and he didn't understand. In his introduction to camping, he's like, "What is this world that you have taken me to?"
Right.
And so he's just pulling and looking and wanting to see everything. But we have like a leash that's like 3 inches long, I think. But I'm also have a camera with me, and so I'm like taking a photo, and I have like the leash around my arm or something, and it pulls me, and it was the hike up Old Baldy with him that I think he was, and he would get upset because we would leave him in one spot, like, hey, we're just going to go 2 feet over here. And he's like, no, I want to come too. And he started like barking.
So
And so,
loud.
instead of like a rooster cawing in the morning, we hiked up there sunrise. So it was like O'Malley echoing across the entire, like, Texas plains. Like, you could hear him. He has
So
a
loud, yeah.
super loud bark, but that was probably just O'Malley
Yeah.
being a very clingy, loving
Yeah.
child, and
Yeah, and I
you
remember
had to
I
keep him
handed
on
him
a
off
leash.
because he was like he was about to just like I was gonna fall off the mountain. Like I was not okay.
Yeah,
He was just
we had to keep him very close, and
yeah.
that's the thing too, on a tight leash. And he's like trying to walk up a rock, and you're like, wait, let me do it first, and he would just jump off or something, and you would
Yeah.
have to go with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, there wasn't any sprained ankles or anything like that. So,
On that one, yeah.
but least favorite, just because of the circumstances, and we could have prepared better. We could have actually, I don't know, like trained O'Malley.
Yeah.
It was just growing pains, I think.
Yes.
That's my least favorite part about anything is like you want to be good. You want things to be perfect
Right.
away, but there's just no way. You're going to forget a lighter, or you're going to have a dog that isn't used to it, right? I say you and I have to get along, but also there's a big old puppy dog with us too, and he's like, I don't like these noises. I don't like this squirrel,
Yeah.
and I don't like anything about this because I'm not used to any of this. And how old was he around then?
I guess he would have been 5.
5, yeah. So 5 years old, and we're introducing him to this entirely new planet.
Yeah.
Like he was overwhelmed most of the time. Now he's much better,
Yes.
but like it took a minute, and so I don't know. You have to have that though in order
Yes.
to get to the point where
Right.
you're at. Like if we would have just after your trip with Jennifer with the van, you were like, "Can we buy a van right
Yeah,
away?"
right away.
But jumping into something like that, like we wouldn't have been as prepared. We would have still been. Imagine having the van and all that scary maintenance that's involved,
Yeah.
but you're also forgetting the lighters or the food
Exactly.
or the cameras. Like there was a time when I completely forgot like camera stuff, and I was like, "Oh, we were like 30 minutes down the road, and yeah, and we don't have a lot of time on weekends." So, yes, I do feel like in a way we have earned this
There has to be
state
like
that
yeah,
we're in now
exactly.
because we've done all these mishaps and mistakes, but somehow, whatever it was, that you get to sit in a excuse me, you get to sit in a hammock 3.5 hours away, besides in your house. Like that's what makes it worth it. Or I'm there for a sunrise, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is like the reddest color, deepest thing I've ever seen, ever, and that's what makes it worth it. Or you just see some weird, cool stuff. I don't know. You can't see that in your living room. We bring that out there into our living room and hang it out on walls and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we found something that makes it worth it, and it's even better that I do photos and videos and stuff because But yeah, I'm so glad because it was video focused first, but I still took the photo camera and took photos, and I'm so glad I did because the videos were just nonsense. Like there was no like story or I don't know. It's so hard.
There was no rhyme or reason to what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were just camping.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's not the way I would want to do things now. But I was still like learning in that side of things too, and like I don't know what I'm doing, but it seemed like I knew what I was doing because I was talking to the park superintendents and stuff, and like
You had me fooled. I thought you had a whole plan, and I was just like, all right, let's do this.
Hans will let us in to the restricted area, like at Galveston Island. They were like building that beach, and he like opened the gate for us and like, right this way. It just it's part of the process. But
Mm-hmm.
I was learning on my side of things, and that's why we say we are in. Like there were times when it was like, "What are you doing, Ethan?" And I'm like trying to put camera
Yeah.
stuff together, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Heather, but I don't know. I don't want to say that, but it's just like, what is your contribution?"
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, well, we are where we are now, I guess, and that's something.
Yeah.
But what's your favorite camping memory?
Um, I think my favorite memory is, and I've kind of talked about this already, but um, yeah, camping in Lake Somerville State Park for the first time. And we still were in the tent with no rainfly at that point. Um, but that was just such a beautiful experience, like from beginning to end. Not to say that there was no, moments where I feel like every camping trip we have those moments where we're like, what are we doing? Like, this is like hard, it's work. But it was like O'Malley's first time to like swim in a lake, and he had the best time ever, and it was really cute to watch him. And then I remember being out in the lake with him and playing, and Danny does not like water, even though she was a lab, but I was like calling her out towards me, and she, like, the look on her face, she was just like, ugh. But she like came towards me all like slow and almost annoyed, but she like loved me more than she hated the water. And you have like that on camera. So like I have that moment even more well remembered in my head. So that was really fun. And then, you're sleeping in a tent with no rain fly. So you're just like staring up at the sky at night, all the stars, which is a really incredible experience. And then that was also the first time that I really, because when we first started camping, it was kind of like, okay, Ethan gave me something to do. I will, fixate on this and make it happen. We'll figure this out. But like I was stressed because I had never camped before, and I was figuring out how to camp, what we need to bring, where are we going to go, what are we going to do, how am I going to support you with what you're wanting to do with like video and photo. And we have the two dogs, and that was their first camping trip too. That was their first time camping with us.
Wow.
And but I had this like moment in the hammock, and I was just like laying there, and Danny was like kind of under me, and I'm just like petting her, and I knew that I like had school and work the next day, but it just didn't matter. Like I just felt so at ease, and I felt like a sense of peace that I don't know if I've ever felt before that. But it really just allowed me to like quiet my brain and enjoy and just like really be in a moment, which I am not always great at doing. So, yeah, that's my favorite.
Neat. It's not a skill you work on, though. Like the harder you try to be in a moment, like you're
Yeah.
like, I'm trying really hard to have fun. It's like the further away you get from it,
Mm-hmm.
it's just effortlessness. And I remember it had to have been like, I don't know how many nights we stayed there. It had to have been like Saturday night or something.
Right.
But you were sitting there, the dogs were asleep, Danny was like on you, and normally you're like getting ready for the Sunday scaries
Yep.
or something, but you're like, I literally have, I'm not worried about anything right now. Like you were just like, what? Like you were
Yeah.
declaring it to everybody, but you're just
Yeah.
like, there's nothing that I'm worried about because you just had the stars, it's super bright, and all the birds and crickets and whatever else is happening,
All the
like all
noises.
the
Yeah.
wind going through all the trees, and that's, I think, whenever you're, that's why your mind is so quieted because it's filled with all of these other noises, like when you have absolute silence around you, that's when you start to, it feels unnatural because nature is normally super loud. Like if
Yeah.
you sleep in a tent, it's so
It's
loud,
loud. Yeah.
but you sleep very peacefully
Yep.
when you're there because I mean, we had an air mattress, but we were just like very close with everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
we had some things falling onto, like tree branches falling onto our tent sometimes, and
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. Like you have birds flying, like vultures, like big birds and all this, and O'Malley's like looking around, but he's just like
Mm-hmm.
also you're protected because you have two giant dogs with you,
Yeah.
so there's not going to be a, I don't know, a Wolverine
Mm-hmm.
coming and attack you. Like it's, so there was that side of it too because yeah, like it's very nice. But yeah, I know what you mean, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a fun one. um
What's your favorite camping memory?
hmm I don't know yet. Like it's all, to me it's just one like big giant experience, and I don't group all experience. I don't know, every, okay, so this is hard to explain. All of the experience that you have is, has no like beginning or end, right? So
Okay.
whenever you try to trace things back to like, well, the reason we have a van is because of this and because of this, like we just walked through all that, this whole podcast, but like there isn't, we can't attribute it to a single like moment. It was
Right.
just constant decisions
Mm-hmm.
that we made together. It's not like one like it wasn't one camping trip when I was younger that made me love camping. It wasn't a singular thing. It was just like it's a thing that I keep experiencing
Mm-hmm.
and I find myself returning to it.
Yeah.
But it's that, the hard work that we had, like I don't know, I just named different things. Like all the drone footage that I have, like that's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Danny and O'Malley are a part of it. The van, the tent, the beggar tent, we were laughing about the wind
Yeah.
knocking, breaking our tent, but like maybe if our tent had been solid and titanium the whole time and not ever blown over, like would we need a van at that, or would it have
Right.
convinced us, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
well, maybe the wind, us miserable and getting knocked around and not sleeping that night, it was worth it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like it's all a part of how
Yes.
we came to be.
So I can't trace it back to a single moment. It's like when getting into quotes. What do you think time is? And the answer is, I know what it is, unless you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like similar to this. Like, what is a time that
Yeah.
you've experienced, like your favorite? But it's like I know what my favorite is, but as soon as you ask me, I don't.
Well, I'm just remembering back to like what was it, our first or second episode, and you were like, "What are your top 5 favorite moments?" And then I like couldn't think of anything, and I was like, "Give me a minute." But that's like literally the same thing, because I was like, I don't know, like how am I supposed to?
Okay, probably then McKinney Falls is the first time I've
You don't
used.
have to choose. It was
Oh,
just a
well,
joke.
McKinney Falls.
Okay.
First time I had this camera. It's called the A7S III, but like getting that camera for the first time, I used the previous version A7S II many years ago, but it's like this camera really like opened up different avenues for me when it
Mm-hmm.
came to capturing. It's a very small camera,
Right.
and like I used to have since forever ago that big giant bulky camera because I was like, I'm a commercial person or a filmmaker or whatever, but like they've made cameras so good and so small now
Mm-hmm.
that made it me capable of capturing like more beautiful. I don't know. Everybody's trying to capture things since like the first portrait of a human was drawn of like a royal person. Then we move on to photos, and we're trying to get as close to real life as we can.
Yeah.
But I know that I will never exactly capture the exact feelings that I felt. But it's fun to get pretty close
Right.
to like how it looks and how it feels and the colors of everything. And that camera at McKinney Falls was really cool because you were like in Zen mode. Like you didn't care where we went or what we did. You just like went like, can we go down there? And you're like, sure. And then you like lay down as I'm like running around trying to get things. And I like, it's one of the first moments that I captured when I looked back at you and you were just completely like gone, but also here at the same time. And I have that on camera.
Mm-hmm.
But that is pretty cool because I try to sneak those in because you normally like run off
Mm-hmm.
and try to go. Well, you don't try to. You're just like, what's over here? And then you like stop and pause and you just find yourself there now. But yeah, you like laid down on a rock
Mm-hmm.
and you weren't sleeping, but you basically could have been. But yeah, favorite camera and also
Yeah.
cool capture.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because it did make what we were doing more realistic
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like we could sustain it because camping with like a whole bunch of camera gear, giant cameras, like
Mm-hmm.
it's just not fun.
No.
And you're the one that's having to lug it around everywhere like while we're hiking and
Yeah.
stuff. So,
I
yeah.
was a Canon camera guy, and
It's a
then
game changer.
that's when I made the switch.
Mhm.
Yeah, but McKinney Falls, that's only 45 minutes,
Mhm.
like not that far. It's South Austin,
Yeah.
so it's very pretty out there too. There's so many weddings, like
Oh, yeah, I
there.
remember there was literally
Hmm.
like 3 weddings
Hmm.
happening just like on a
Yeah,
random Saturday that we were there.
but that's always fun. Like when people
Yeah.
choose to like go out and just be like, I want to get married out here,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then everybody just sitting around, like that's just swimming in the swimming hole, and they like
Yep.
kiss or whatever, and everybody looks and they all start clapping. Like that's the audience. It's a bunch of strangers that attended your wedding.
Oh, yeah, if
You
I
know?
was going to redo like our wedding, I would do like an elopement in like a cool park.
Mm, that would be cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's all I got for this one.
Yeah.
What do you have? You got any closing remarks?
Um no, I think that pretty much covers the evolution of our camping adventures.
Yeah, once we get to the van, it's just like gets to craziness,
Yeah.
and it just expanded just like that camera, right? It's like everything in a tiny little package. That's what
Mhm.
is great about technology when it comes to camping. Like you get all these little tiny things that don't take up hardly any room now,
Yeah.
like little camping towels that like dry
Mhm.
instantly, or a little foldable skillet folds into itself and you put it in cabinets. Like
Yeah.
everything being more efficient and smaller is like the real benefit to innovation and all
Mhm.
that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I was literally thinking about this whole experience being the best part about it, but you made me choose, and I had that in my mind. And you're like, oh,
Mhm.
you just can't say it. And I'm like, I don't have to think about it. It's that moment. Sure, if we have to put a name to
I
it.
mean, what you said made sense.
Yeah,
But yeah. Um
yeah,
yeah, so we need to camp more
yes.
again.
But we won't be doing what some people suggested, which is doing the podcast while camping, because
Oh, someone said that?
it was a suggestion or two. Like,
Hmm.
you should do it in the van, or you should do it while you're at a state park, and then blah, blah,
We
blah.
tried that. Like you tried to make me sit down and I don't
Oh,
remember
big
where
camera days.
Meridian, we were at Meridian State Park
Inks Lake.
and you
Is Inks Lake. I remember the exact spot it was in.
okay, yeah, and you like set up a tripod, put the camera down, put our chairs out and you're like, "All right, let's do this thing." And I'm like, "What are we even going to talk about?" And then there's people around and it's like just feels not authentic and then I was like, "Is this what we're doing? Is this what go there do that is? We're just going to like do this?" And then I was like, "I don't know if I want to do that."
Yeah. Who would watch us just sit around and talk? You know what I mean? No, but
Well,
when we're there, we're experiencing the
yeah,
outdoors, right? And we shouldn't bring that in and be like,
compromise,
so
yeah,
today,
yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just like, we're doing the thing and I'm recording us as we're doing it. And this
Mhm.
is us reflecting because humans are the only creature on planet Earth that's capable of reflecting
Yeah.
on experiences. So I don't want to waste that. So
Mhm.
here we are,
Yeah.
reflected upon. So with that, thanks for watching. This has been a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Very fun. Hopefully, it's a good enough breakdown to get your more insight on the very beginnings of Go There Do That. It was very wonderfully frustrating, awesome experience.
And if you think that you're the kind of person that would hate camping, give it a shot, because I spent like 15 years being upset about my wet pillow,
Mm-hmm.
and I love camping now. So you never know.
If you're scared of it, just remember that fear is just a song that has one tune or one word, and that one word is stop. Also, fear is very boring because everybody has it, and you're not unique for being scared. But also, it's the same every time you experience it. But when you're out adventuring, that is where all the new and wonderful feelings come in, because you don't have to be scared. Okay, bye.